I can't believe you haven't discovered Pixel Dungeon yet. It's a classic roguelike dungeon crawl game with simple gameplay, obvious mechanics, and deceptively tough to beat. But before you get all excited and head straight to the Play Store to install it on your phone, hear me out. The original Pixel Dungeon game hasn't been updated since 2015. The code was written for older versions of the Android operating system, so it might not function properly with your phone nowadays. But don't fret, there are still options. Since Pixel Dungeon was created as an open-source product available at the developer's website, GitHub, lots of game developers have put their own twist on the game, and some of them have been updated as recently as this summer. Let me show off a few of them for you. Links to these games will be in the description below. An obvious place to start would be Shattered Pixel Dungeon, the unquestioned leader of the PD mods market. Even Debenham has been consistently active in keeping Shattered Pixel up to date with the latest changes in Android operating systems, and has even developed versions of the game for desktop computers and iPhones. He has added a new hero to the classic set of 4 options: the Warrior, Mage, Rogue, and Huntress. His new class is the Duelist, capable of wielding 2 weapons at once. Even is also revamping the Pixel Mart interactions and the Blacksmith quest for later in the game. He stays very much in touch with players by monitoring gameplay, interacting with fans on Discord, and including links to his blog directly in the game. There is also a Changes button where he shows off the individual changes he has made in each update, new features, bug fixes, and tweaks he has made. Remixed Dungeon was the first mod to introduce new features to the game with its overland town environment, new monsters, changed animations, and revamped colors in the lower levels of the dungeon. This mod has also added new classes to the classic lineup of 4 heroes by adding Elf, Necromancer, and Gnoll. Another new feature of this mod is the ability to customize the game with remixed mods created by players. There are also different degrees of difficulty available for play, as easy, normal with saves, normal, and expert. So if you are new to the game, you can make it a little easier to play. Or if you are experienced, you can increase the toughness to make it more challenging. You can even record your own gameplay. But don't forget about the portal on the south edge of the overland town, which can only be used after you have defeated the first boss monster at level 5. Summoning Pixel Dungeon, which can be found as Summoning PD in the Play Store, is based on a very recent version of Evan Debenham's Shattered Pixel Dungeon, but brings a very different twist to the game. With 2 new classes, the Conjurer and the Adventurer, this mod focuses on new wands which can summon creatures to fight alongside you. The game modes include Normal, Fast, Extra Enlargement, Subterranean Diversity, Gauntlet Mode, Exploration, Proficient Polygon Catacombs, Soulless Hero, Flawed Thinking, Complete Hell, Increased Difficulty, Turnabout Time Twister, and Project Paradox. This is in addition to the conducts which can be added by hitting the little trophy to the left of the class name button, including the notoriously difficult Faith is My Armor challenge. But this brings me to my original favorite mod of the game, Skillful Pixel Dungeon. This game features game difficulty options: Easy, Normal, Hell, Nightmare, and Just Kill Me. There is also a Gauntlet mode. You can also play in either 2D or 2.5D mode. Once inside the game, you can hire mercenaries for a moderate amount of gold. You will need to unlock the Archer-Maiden by making a small, real-world donation to the game developer. You can also increase the number of champion monsters you will meet and change their attributes. If you don't find food, you can buy rations from the Rat King for some gold, but it gets more expensive the deeper you go in the dungeon. There is also a unique skills tree for each class of hero, which you can use to advance your hero in different ways as he or she levels up. The developer of Skillful Pixel Dungeon also began work on a platform version of the game, but has not completed it yet. It only features 2 playable heroes, the Warrior and the Mage. The Pixel Mart has its merchandise on high shelves, and the stairs down are marked by a triangle with an arrow above the door. The skills tree from the original game has been installed, but is also incomplete. If we all go to his Discord server and pester him about finishing this version of the game, it could encourage him to finish it. But fair warning, the platform game is landscape only. Next, I want to show you a few versions of the game which are older versions which haven't been updated recently, but are still viable products in the market. Your Pixel Dungeon has a built-in map editor which retains the randomizing nature of the game by allowing you to specify what type of floor each level of your dungeon will be, which rooms will appear in each level, what kinds of monsters will appear and how many, and what kind of loot will be found on each level. You can also import and export your maps so that you can share them with your friends. There will be a folder on your phone named your PD when you export. This game also has a tutorial mode which allows you to play the entire 26-level dungeon with notes to describe each and every aspect of the game when you encounter it. But there is a new mod called Custom Pixel Dungeon, which I will discuss later in this video, which will probably make this game obsolete. Sprouted Pixel Dungeon has been a perennial favorite among Pixel Dungeon fans as it promises larger levels, several secret floors, Sokoban puzzles, plentiful food including berries, nuts, mushrooms, and seeds, several mini-boss monsters, and lots of changes to the armor, weapons, and gear. If you want to play this game seriously, I would recommend reading the wiki page for it. I have included the link to it in the description below. There is lots of controversy in the fandom about this game as the developer uploaded a version 0.5 update to the game which was unstable and corrupted in the endgame levels and then promptly disappeared. So if you play this game, make sure you only have version 0.4.0 or 1. One of the abandoned mods of Pixel Dungeon is Moonshine Pixel Dungeon. It had revolutionary features, the ability to choose the gender of your character in all classes except Huntress, a story-based version of the dungeon which generates a structured labyrinth with tricky puzzles, a new class called the Gunslinger, lots of new monsters, and compelling bonus features. However, it is no longer available at the Playstore. The game was incomplete both in its new features and in its execution. The challenges, which can be selected at the start of each game, had no descriptions, so their changes would be a surprise. In 2020, an upgrade was announced but never delivered. However, one of the developers in the market has revamped a game based on the original version of Moonshine PT, which he called Boss Slain Pixel Dungeon, with all the features unlocked. A link to it is in the description. Because Pixel Dungeon is an open-source game and the source code is freely available at GitHub, anybody who has programming capability can make a mod of the game, and some deeply entrenched fandoms have taken it upon themselves to develop games with characters from their favorite stories. Goblins is an online webcomic which has been written for over 13 years and is still being written to this day. The Touhou project is a video game franchise which became a cultural phenomenon in Japan because its author imposed very few restrictions on the use of his characters. The gymnasium was a famous graduate school in Russia during the 1980s and 90s. Apparently, its students feel a strong sense of loyalty to it. You know it had to happen. If there are games in which you play the hero descending into the depths of a dungeon and it becomes popular, there will be a version in which you play one of the monsters fighting its way up to the entrance. Reclaim the Dungeon is exactly that. You play as a gnoll, a dwarf, a rat, or an animated statue. You start at the room where the Amulet of Yender had been stored and you work your way up. I don't know if you have noticed yet, but so far all of the Pixel Dungeon mods have been ad-free, with the developers relying solely on player donations for income. But this one has ads. This is the game that will put your Pixel Dungeon off the map. Based on a very recent version of Evan Debenham's Shattered Pixel Dungeon, this mod promises much more than a mere map editor. It comes with a link to a Google Doc with elaborate instructions on how to customize the entire game, changing the sprites and tiles, rewrite any in-game text, add customized monsters, design your own levels, change the characteristics of the heroes, and even redesign the game's interface. There is a separate menu for loading your mods or other modders' mods into the game to be played. The only reason that this game wouldn't supplant your Pixel Dungeon is its complexity. The most successful feature of your Pixel Dungeon is its ease of use. Here are all the games that have been discussed in this video. As promised, links for all of them are in the description below, except Moonshine Pixel Dungeon. It's the one game discussed here that is no longer available. Since nobody will be watching this part of the video, I'll try not to say anything meaningful here. Even though I am an AI avatar, the script for this video was written by the author of this book, and all the game videos were filmed and edited separately by that same human. The timing effort was such a learning curve. The video for Remixed Dungeon was my first effort, and it really shows how inept I was when I started this project. In defense of using AI to accomplish this feat, I have been putting it off for several years, unable to conquer my tendency to ramble until this format came along to help arrange and structure my thoughts.